Happy Easter again, and here I am with my Easter earrings on. These are my Jesus earrings, and I wear them with pride. My little grandson Andy, who's now graduating from high school and about this tall, maybe taller, when he was little, he was very small, making jewelry with his sister Shelby. And I'm sure he wouldn't want to be reminded of that, but I'm telling the world. And so he came over and presented these sweet earrings to me. And he said, "Grandma, I had to make these for you because you're the only person I knew of that would wear Jesus earrings." So here you go. And I wear them quite proudly. I love Unity because we want to teach the story that Jesus came to teach, and that is, you are the light of the world. You can do anything that I do. The Christ consciousness is available to you too. Without the sad story that has gone with that for so many years. And I know all of you, or many of you, went to the churches like I did as a child, where we weren't sure if we ended up after a Good Friday or Easter feeling good or what we felt. It was hard to know, wasn't it? Because of the sadness and the sacrifice and the confession and all the negative that seemed, and the drama that seemed to go along with that story. And I've shared with you several times that even as a child, I knew there's something wrong with this. There is something wrong with this. This can't. I love Jesus, and we're not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater, which is what a lot of us do as we, maybe we, for a couple of decades, we said, well, gee, I don't want anything to do with that, and there's nothing else available. And then we discovered a teaching like Unity. We said, yeah, there's a way to love Jesus and to follow those teachings and do everything that he said and follow that path and reach the kingdom. And you know what? We're going to talk about that today, and we're going to talk about how to find the kingdom right here. You don't have to die to find heaven. Right here, right now, we're going to talk about how to make that first step. We talked about it last week a little bit, and I said how to find your purpose and how to know that you're on the path. And the first thing you need to do, I said, I'm telling you the secret of all secrets. And that is to make Christ consciousness your goal. Not your job, not anything else, not cleaning up the environment, not getting the next president elected, not this, that, or the other, whatever drama you got going on in your life, okay? Or you have had. That's not your goal. Your main goal needs to be serving the higher purpose, God, the world. How can I serve? How can I serve? How can I serve? How can I use my talents? I think that's one of the questions then that comes up. Sure, it's easy enough for you. You know what your purpose is. Well, let me tell you, you will know what your purpose is soon enough if you choose Christ consciousness and you choose that, following God as your goal. That's your first step on that ladder headed toward heaven. And the next thing you know, you'll start experiencing so many states of bliss and joy, you won't even know how to put words to it. I thought this was so sweet. I just had to share it with you. Where's the bunny? They're all dressed up, waiting for the Easter bunny. How many times do we feel that way in our lives? You know, we're looking for a purpose. We're looking for what is my bliss? You know, what is my role in all of this? And we can find ourselves at that point many, many times in this lifetime. We can do that. Now, I was reading a story the other day. It was The Spiritual Quest by Mary Ann Bukowski. And she talked about how she was so surprised by bliss in her life. She said she went on a retreat. It was just a simple retreat. She didn't really expect anything miraculous to happen. But she had stated as her joy before going that she would find, her goal to be there would be to find bliss in her life, joy. Find joy after all. She said something changed inside me on that retreat, and I've been feeling the effects ever since. The most significant change is that out of the blue, she said, I am just seized by feelings of intense joy for no reason at all. As C.S. Lewis wrote in his book of the same title, sometimes I'm surprised by joy, just suddenly. In the midst of doing something, I spontaneously start to smile and chuckle and sometimes burst into song. She said it's sometimes as if she can't even contain the joy. It is so great and so full. She was thinking of the musical Finian's Rainbow, and the town folk are singing about the hero, Sister Susan. She says, a secret. She's got a secret kind of secret. She's aching to shout it to every daffodil and to tell the world about it. In fact, she thinks she will. Then they burst into the theme of the song. And you know it's love. It's all about love. All about love. And being love. And the interesting thing is when you take that first step toward finding your higher purpose and you say, God, I want to follow you in whatever way that is meaningful to you. I want my purpose to be to serve the higher good. And we've all been there at different times. You know, as my husband and I were planning to move here, Katrina happened. And when we look back on it, we know that it was all in God's timing, and you will find that it happens that way. At the time, it didn't feel like it did it. We were leaving a beautiful place. We had 18 acres right on the Tennessee River. Big, beautiful home. I just loved it, but there was a stirring, and I knew that we needed to be here. I'd had that stirring for a couple of years, and it wouldn't leave me alone. So we sold that, and we had chosen a house here that was in Bay St. Louis, a beautiful house right on Beach Boulevard. And before any of that could happen, Katrina happened, and it was just unbelievable. And at the time we thought, I remember looking at the devastation and what we had planned to do, and here we were faced with selling this beautiful place and moving to who knew where, who knew what. There was nothing. And my husband said, I said, well, Dan, what are we going to do now? He said, we're going anyway. Well, thank goodness for his courage and strength, because I'm not certain what I would have done alone, but I appreciate that. But we came anyway, and we found a place that was a couple of streets back, but we could live upstairs like it was an apartment while we rebuilt downstairs, which was good. And that was, if you could find anything like that at that time, you were lucky, because there wasn't much. We came anyway, and I remember thinking, though, that my belief in coming and the stirring that I had was that I would be fulfilling my purpose here, and as a minister, I would be, maybe I'd start a little group in Bay St. Louis, or it hadn't taken definition yet, but that had been what I had been thinking. And so then we're faced with nothing. I mean, you, those of you that were here, you know what I'm talking about. There were heaps of trash 10 feet tall on the sides of the road everywhere, where houses had been torn down that were demolished, and it was hard not to be depressed now. I mean, you really had to work at it every day not to be. And I remember just saying to myself, I was thinking one day, okay, I don't know the full story. I don't know why I was led here, but I do know I was led for a reason. And this is not the end of the story. Roger and I were talking about that this morning. The fact that we will have a little blip in the road, and we need to remember right in the middle of it, this is not the end of the story. And Jesus' message tells us more than anything, when we look at it symbolically and metaphorically, we say, okay, of course, he knew what he was headed to, and he knew what was at the end of it too. So he knew this was not the end, didn't he? But he also knew he had some trials to go through. And he went anyway. He went anyway. He followed his heart. He followed where he knew God, Spirit, love, light were leading him. So we go anyway. One of the things I chose at that time to do that would create a sense of fulfillment for me, to feel like I was contributing, is that I've always been avid about recycling and caring for the earth. I cared so much, as a matter of fact, I even went to graduate school to get a degree in earth consciousness and earth studies. That's how much I cared about it. And so I was still avid about that, and still am. But I would take a plastic bag and walk all day long picking up aluminum cans, because I knew they could be recycled, and people were just throwing them down on the side of the road. So I'd walk around picking up aluminum cans, and just in my old clothes, old shoes, I didn't care. I still don't care what anyone thought. But there was one man that lived there on 2nd Street, just up the road from where we lived, and he saw me coming by every day, and he always had a bag of beer cans sitting out for me. He said, ma'am, he came out to see me one day. He said, now, ma'am, I'm saving all my cans for you. And I said, I noticed that. So here's the beauty of that. It didn't matter. It didn't matter if he thought that I needed that to live on. And maybe I did. Maybe that was my life at that point. Maybe he was helping keep me alive. He was helping keep something alive there, wasn't he? My spirit. whatever. So is the resurrection real? By golly, we know it is, don't we? Because we see resurrection every single day. We see a resurrection, and we know it's true. And here was what I was talking about this morning. I spoke of it last week about needing to find your purpose. Seek ye first the kingdom, and all will be added to you. Jesus said that. Seek ye first the kingdom. It's all we need to do. Megan McKenna is a prolific and profound Catholic writer. She saw it this way when she was leading a Bible study, and she shares it in her book, Not Counting Women and Children, Neglected Stories from the Bible. She said, at once I was in a parish mission when I was studying the scripture, Luke 7:11-17, with a large group. Someone called out harshly. And by the way, Luke 11:17 is where Jesus was bringing someone back from the dead. But someone yelled out harshly to her in this group meeting, "Have you ever brought anyone back from the dead?" They said. She said, I had been saying that life happens when we're interrupted, and some of the most powerful acts of resurrection happen to the least likely people. We are the people of resurrection and hope, called to live passionately and compassionately with others, to defy death, to forgive, to bring others back into the community, to do something that is life-giving, that fights death and needless suffering. And then she heard that challenge from the back of the church. She said, my response was yes. I went on to say, every time I bring hope into a situation, every time I bring joy that shatters despair, every time I forgive others, give them back dignity, I'm bringing people back from the dead. Have you ever had anyone do that for you? I suspect there are many in here that have been brought back from the dead themselves. All of us probably, from certain events in our lives. Spiritual teachers can point you to the path of resurrection, showing you texts and mentors to jumpstart your journey. And every time you bring life to another and wonder, and you affirm hope for them, reminding them of what they already knew, maybe they've forgotten, you're practicing resurrection by giving voice to your yearning and acting upon your desire to feel closeness to God. That's what I was saying about that yearning and that knowing that I had, knowing that we needed to be here. I knew that, in spite of the fact that Katrina had come and destroyed everything, and by the looks and appearances of it, you'd say, wow, I got that wrong, didn't I? But that we were just in the middle of the story. And then to say, then, you know, a year or two later, our daughter Sherry and husband Al and the 2 grandchildren moved over, and just look at what they have added here on the coast. Sherry is a violin teacher, and Al is a band instructor and the kids with all they're doing. One person at a time, we're bringing the light and love and the Christ consciousness right here to the Gulf Coast of Mississippi. Each and every one of us, don't doubt your gifts and your talents and everything that you do. Pay attention to that yearning, because that's God trying to tell you something. Listen to that. You don't have to die to experience heaven. We can experience a resurrection right now. The Reverend Johnny Ray Youngblood's sermon at St. Paul Community Church said, "Every time I see a man put down his bottle, there's a resurrection going on." Is that cool? There's a resurrection going on. And I would end with this today. My Easter friends, those of us that may choose to have an Easter moment anytime we want. We can be reborn from our illness, whatever it is that we've got going on. We've got a resurrection going on right here, right now. And from the fragrance of God. Bergen Gergoen says, "Several summers ago, my children found 2 turtles and put them in the vegetable garden. During a thaw the next February, as I was digging up the soggy soil where the peas go, I lifted a heavy mound with my shovel and then another. The 2 turtles had burrowed themselves down for winter sleep, and I had rudely awakened them too soon. So I carried them to a corner of the garden where I would not disturb them and dug them in again. When my wife said that she feared the turtles might be dead, I said I did not think so, though I was not nearly as sure as I sounded. I insisted that in spring they would come up, and they did, in Easter week. Lilies and hyacinths signify the resurrection, and I can understand why, with their glorious beauty. But I have a pair of turtles that plant themselves in my garden every fall, like 2 gigantic seeds, and rise again on Easter with earthen crowns upon their humbled heads. With the women at the tomb, I marvel." I just hope that this week, this year, this time of resurrection will bring many, many Easter moments and Easter miracles your way. Thank you for your time. Let me grab my